I'm really excited to introduce you all to a project that we've been working on in the background really since 2015. So before we even launched Exponent Group, this has been a labor of love for us. It really does boil down to, are we resourcing the people in front of us accurately? Are we asking the right questions? And is the information that we're getting helping to change our course of action? And if not, where are we stuck, and what are the resources that are going to help us move past this blockage? And so where this interesting conversation we've been having with Jim Singleton about a year ago, and so this is a paraphrase of something that he had shared with a larger group of us. He's a church historian. He comes out of the Presbyterian background, and he said, when in the early 1900s, towards the end of the revivals, we began to notice that when the decline in the vibrancy of the ministry really began to take place around the same time that a new set of metrics were being introduced to the parishes. And so early on, during the height of the revivals, the questions were things like, how have you seen the Holy Spirit really show up in your gatherings and in your community? What are some of the miracles that you are giving testimony to? But eventually we began to shift to how many people have been attending this meeting, how many people are doing this activity. And so it became very numerical without any kind of qualitative, formative insight. And we began to see the decline. And so that's something that we wanted to pay attention to. We also noticed that there are a couple of additional challenges that I think are worth noting here. One is obviously language. We've spoken a lot about that over the years. That's true across the board of people that are in our space of helping to reproduce disciple making. We all use words differently. We have different definitions for things. We have different philosophies. But it's not just true in the network and the region at large. Some of the other challenges are actually inside the organizations themselves, where you might see some discrepancy, where the pastor may have a definition that he's trying to bring his parishioners along with, but not everyone is bought in or understands it completely. So you have these language barriers. Let's say you get over that hump, and then you have a data collection problem. That's usually overcome, and the churches that are really doing a great job with this right now are using things like Typeform, Google Forms, things like that, and you collect this information. The next hurdle that you have, however, is then the correlation of that information. How is it moving you towards resourcing? Do we understand how the results that we're seeing are actually directly tied to the actions that we took? And if not, well, first of all, we got to see that those things are connected. But then when we're not seeing the kinds of shifts that we want to see happen in our discipling ministry, what are the shifts that we need to take, and what are different actions we need to take? Another quick set of challenges I think are worth noting is what this is not. This is not an attempt to replace existing church systems. We're not a tech company. We're a disciple-making consulting group. I mean, this is really, we're trying to help reproduce healthy disciples everywhere. And so everyone's going to have their preference of CRMs, church management systems. This is being designed to functionally supercharge your existing system. The last piece I would say is that I hear this all the time. There are so many books, so many podcasts, there's so many resources out there on discipleship and all the different categories of it all, that people just are inundated with it all, and they don't know how to filter it down to, what do I need today to do what is in front of me right now to move the needle forward? And we need a way to make the right decision on what to suggest next. And so that is part of the design of this as well. So I just want to introduce you to, this is a whiteboarding session that our team is currently working through. This is just a sample of the screenshot, the dashboard that we would be pushing to. But I do want to highlight, again, this isn't just about metrics for the sake of metrics. We collect this information so that we make better decisions. And so part of the better decisions are, what is the right resource based on the information that's in front of us? And then how do we build that? How do we disseminate that? And how do we deploy it pinpointedly, accurately, right to the right person at the right time? So this is a quick view of that. I'm going to fly through this. You guys can look at it more deeply, and I'm happy to jump on a call to go through what our current thought process is with this. But I just want to highlight a few pieces here. that as a mentor opens it up, they would have some things for their own formation and ongoing learning. And this would be coming from whoever's mentoring them, that would push right to the top. What is my learning program, or what are some of the suggested resources that I'm saving for later, things that I want to review and go over. We want to be able to put those there. They'd be able to see a quick snapshot of the trend lines of all of their mentees, the folks that they're walking with, and then some upcoming events that are going on. This call to action would actually be a push notification back to the organization's administrator. So if we have a volunteer or a discipleship pastor or whoever that might be, they'd be the ones that are manning this inbox. So if we flip the script, the little toggle over here, now let's say the mentor is meeting with their mentee, Jasmine, and after the end of the meeting, they want to be able to add a quick new score based on kind of the sense of where she is in her process, whatever that might look like. We'd be populating a trend line on these different categories for her. We'd be able to see a quick review of it. But that data is only good in as much as it gives us an idea of what to resource her with next, right? So the idea from there is that we would be able to share a resource based on the suggestions from the resource library directly with Jasmine. Now, Jasmine may have an app or she may not, and if she's not in the system, this would be able to push to her via text, email, all of the different communication channels that we all have in our iPhones right now. Now, for her, if she does have the app, she'd be able to see the ongoing learning of what's going on for her. And then she'd be able to see a little bit of what's going on for the folks that she's praying for currently. Because again, we're about reproducing discipleship. So as she is growing and learning and all these things, we're encouraging her, and our mentors are all encouraging their disciplees to reproduce what they're being given to others, right? So this would be another way for her to continue to track what's going on with her people of peace and who she's walking with. So this is kind of the frame there. So quick view of where we're heading with the user interface, the functionality of the questions. Now, these are the questions that we currently have built in our scorecard system on Salesforce. So the idea that we're really pushing on here is, you'll notice it as you review the questions. So these are the main categories, right? So evangelism is the main category in this particular set of questions. We're looking for, do they have a knowledge of a skill within this? And are they actively obeying it, doing the thing that they know how to do? And so there's some philosophy that goes behind this. One, can they do something? If the answer is no, well, that's easy. We know what to do next. We teach them how, right? And so, but if they know how, but they're not doing it, that usually indicates that there's some kind of an emotional blockage that's going on. It changes my conversation with them. Okay, notice that you can have these things, you know all of these things, but you're not doing anything with it. That is a very different mentoring conversation than, let me teach you a new skill. However, the part of where this also came from is we kept having these conversations, and we had this assumption that if we just kept training, people would do things. And that's a wrong assumption, because we know more today than we will ever be able to put into practice in reality. And so it wasn't a training gap. It was an emotional gap, a spiritual gap in some situations as well. So this helped us to identify those things. The only numerical thing that we are measuring right now is, in this example, John Smith is discipling how many people? 5? Cool. 5 people that John is actively discipling. Now, from that group of 5, how many of them are actively discipling other people? 2. Wonderful. Now what we're able to do with that number is we're seeing that there is reproduction happening. We know that he's being mindful to it. Less interested in what the number is, more interested to see that there's a connection here and a reproduction rate that is happening. So that's what we're looking for on that. So you can flip through these slides and see where it goes. Eventually, we want to land on a report, something like this. Not married to the design of this, but just to give you an idea of functionality. So in evangelism right now, if John in the first quarter had 3 unchecked boxes, we would want to flag that. That seems like that's like 50%. That's an F in a test, you know? So we want to flag that with a color like a red color, as you can kind of see what's going on with that. There's 2 unchecked boxes in there. That's caution. Let's take a look at it. And if he's really crushing it in an area like prayer, he's just amazing in it. Wonderful. It's all green. And our goal is, it'd be great to see all greens all the time, but the reality is these things are going to ebb and flow. And so as a mentor, we're looking for those opportunities to come in, click inside here and see what's going on. Why is he stuck here? And what are the things that he's missing? And let's really drive in and let's get there. Here's some of those recommended resources from my friend John Smith. We are able to populate it again from the resource library. Here's a view of that from the mobile, so you can see it a little bit more closely. We want to be able to share that stuff quickly and accurately. Just want to highlight again this is not something that we're just building from scratch. We started this with Google Sheets and pens and paper and all of the things. When we birthed, we were given access to Salesforce for free, and we figured out how to build a system within Salesforce that could do some active reporting. It's been helpful. Between 2019 and 2021, we had over 100 people now that we've been tracking with. And so we've been filling out those forms and adding to it. Earlier in 2022, we began to ask some of our key disciple makers in different churches and ministries that we've been serving. We asked them to begin to score folks in their community, which is now taking our number of people, active scorecards in our system. It's continually taking it up. And so the system as it's designed currently cannot handle this. It's very manually intensive. So we have to come up with another solution here. So that's what we're working on there. And you'll see that we're in development now. I want to introduce you, before we get that, just some of the cost breakdown. These are rough numbers based on a lot of conversations and a lot of quoting back and forth. And really, ultimately, all in, what we're thinking it's going to run us around $90,000 to build, which isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it is here, and I'm quite excited for it, for where this could lead all of us forward to. What you'll notice is that you'll start to see our goal is really to launch this publicly in the first quarter of 2024. And this would be, we're trying to play with the numbers. We don't know what it would cost for us to continually develop this over time, but it will need to cover itself. We cannot rely on outside funding for this forever. So we need to build this in such a way where it can generate revenue and take care of itself long term and continue to grow and serve more disciple makers. And so that's the trajectory that we're trying to move this thing towards. So these are some of the rough numbers. We've already begun paying for some of the design work, and this is coming out of our budget. We've made some moves from a staffing perspective in order to move in this direction because it's a high need. And so these are accurate quotes in terms of how much it'll cost per quarter for us for the foreseeable future. Let me introduce you to some of the people that are behind this already. So you guys already know me. My friend Joel Travis was the first one to raise his hand and say he wanted to volunteer to help us with this. His background is in data science and analytics, and he's done quite a bit with some business startup stuff. So he's been helping me really dial this project in more tightly. And then Kevin Burgess is the man that works for Faith Tech. So Faith Tech is also trying to rally some volunteer coders to help us really getting this thing dialed in. So we're really excited about that. We have just begun our work with Tyler O'Day and her team. She's based out of the Denver metropolitan area. And so right now, the first priority for us is to get our Knowledge Hub rebuilt in our website. So her team is actively building that and putting that all together. The goal is to have that done by the end of September of 2022. And then from there, we'll begin to move into other adjustments that need to happen. She'll start designing screens for the scorecard, and we'll be off to the races. So we want to invite you all to consider ways that you might donate to Exponent Group to help build this solution for the church, to really supercharge the transformation and the reproduction of our disciple-making efforts. Thanks so much.